Patriots fans, the atmosphere around the team is heating up as one of the most important moments of the offseason gets closer and closer. With the draft just around the corner, speculation is everywhere, and the buzz isn't just about prospects coming out of college. There are big names already in the league being discussed, and one situation in particular has caught the attention of everyone watching closely. The name generating the most noise right now is Max Crosby. What seemed like a done deal involving a blockbuster move to Baltimore suddenly collapsed in dramatic fashion. The trade, which reportedly included 2 first-round picks heading to Las Vegas, was pulled back after a failed physical. That twist completely reshaped the landscape, leaving both sides frustrated and the future of Crosby once again uncertain. Now, instead of settling into a new home, he remains with the Raiders, but not without ongoing interest from multiple teams. Even with that setback, the Raiders are still receiving calls, and the asking price has not softened. In fact, it remains incredibly high, starting at those same 2 first-round selections. That alone makes things complicated for any team trying to enter the conversation, especially a team like New England that has to balance building for the present while protecting its long-term future. There is no doubt that a player of Crosby's caliber would instantly elevate the defense, but the cost is the kind that forces serious hesitation. There are other teams circling as well, and the Cowboys have been mentioned as one of the more aggressive suitors. What makes their involvement intriguing is the contrast in their recent decisions. After moving on from a major defensive piece, they now appear willing to consider a package that includes both high-value picks and financial commitment for Crosby. It highlights just how valuable elite edge rushers are in today's league, and how quickly priorities can shift when an opportunity like this appears. For the Patriots, though, the situation feels a bit different. A move of that magnitude right now would likely require sacrificing too much, especially with the team positioned to make key selections in the upcoming draft. There is a strong argument that instead of making a massive trade before the season, patience could be the smarter play. If circumstances change during the year and the price begins to drop, that is when New England could become a much more serious contender in the race. Another layer to this story adds even more intrigue. There have been whispers that Tom Brady, now connected to the Raiders organization, may not be entirely enthusiastic about the idea of Crosby ending up in New England. Given his history with the Patriots, it creates an interesting dynamic, though it is difficult to measure how much influence that actually has behind the scenes. Still, it is one of those details that keeps the conversation alive and adds a bit of drama to an already complex situation. While all of this unfolds, attention is also locked in on the draft itself, where projections are constantly shifting. This is the time of year when mock drafts dominate discussions, and every analyst seems to have a different vision of how things will play out. For the Patriots, the range of possibilities is wide, and much of it depends on how the front office evaluates both immediate needs and long-term potential. One of the biggest questions revolves around the wide receiver position. With changes to the roster, it is natural to look at that group as an area that needs reinforcement. Some projections have linked New England to a talented receiver out of Washington, a player with the tools to eventually develop into a top option. The key question, though, is timing. Can he step in right away and make a major impact? Or is he more of a long-term investment that requires patience? That dilemma becomes even more important when you consider the team's current position. If the goal is to compete at the highest level immediately, every early pick carries significant weight. Drafting a player who may take a full season to reach his potential is a calculated risk. On the other hand, passing on that kind of talent could mean missing out on a future cornerstone piece. It is a balancing act that defines successful drafts and often separates good teams from great ones. On the defensive side, the need for impact players is just as clear. Adding strength to the edge or linebacker position has been a consistent theme in projections, and it makes sense given the importance of pressuring opposing quarterbacks. A strong presence in that area can completely change the identity of a defense, and it is something the Patriots could prioritize early depending on how the board falls. At the same time, the overall strategy seems to be centered around flexibility. Rather than locking into one specific position, the focus appears to be on finding players who not only fit immediate needs, but also have the potential to become long-term starters. The idea is to come out of the early rounds with contributors who can rotate in right away while developing into key pieces over the next few seasons. As all these scenarios continue to evolve, the Patriots find themselves in a position where every decision carries significant implications. Whether it is monitoring the situation with a star player like Crosby or evaluating the next wave of talent entering the league, the front office has to weigh every option carefully. And with so many moving parts, the path they choose could define not just the upcoming season, but the direction of the franchise moving forward as the pressure continues to build and expectations begin to rise once again across New England as the draft conversations continue to dominate the spotlight. There is another layer of change happening across the league that could quietly reshape how games are played next season. Several rule proposals are being discussed, and while they may not grab headlines like blockbuster trades or top prospects, their impact could be felt every single week on the field. For teams like the Patriots, understanding and adapting to these adjustments can become a subtle but important advantage. One of the most talked about ideas involves expanding the use of the onside kick. Instead of limiting teams to specific late-game situations, the proposal would allow it to be declared at any point during a matchup. That change alone could introduce a completely new level of strategy, forcing coaching staffs to stay alert from start to finish. It is the kind of rule that could reward bold decision-making while also punishing teams that lose focus, even for a moment. There is also a continued effort to refine kickoff rules, an area that has already undergone multiple changes in recent years. The league is clearly trying to strike a balance between safety and competitiveness, and that has led to adjustments in alignment and positioning. These tweaks might seem minor at first glance, but they can influence field position, momentum swings, and even roster construction as teams look for players who can thrive under the evolving system. Another proposal aims to improve communication between league officials and on-field referees, particularly in situations that could lead to player disqualification. The goal is to ensure that the correct decisions are made without unnecessarily slowing down the game. In a sport where every second matters, finding that balance is crucial. Teams want accuracy, but they also want rhythm, and the league appears determined to refine both aspects simultaneously. There is even a temporary measure being considered that would allow certain clear and obvious officiating errors to be corrected more efficiently under specific circumstances. This would focus on objective calls, such as whether a player stepped out of bounds or if a catch was completed cleanly. While it would not extend to more subjective penalties, it represents another step toward minimizing mistakes that can dramatically alter the outcome of a game. While these discussions continue behind the scenes, the Patriots remain focused on building the core of their roster, and that brings attention back to the trenches. One name that has started to generate more interest is a massive defensive tackle out of Ohio State. At an imposing size, he represents the kind of presence that can anchor a defensive front and disrupt opposing offenses, particularly in the running game. It is the type of player that does not always show up in highlight reels, but can completely change how a defense performs snap after snap. What makes this situation even more interesting is how it contrasts with the current depth on the defensive line. On paper, the Patriots already have solid pieces in place, which raises the question of whether adding another player at that position is truly a priority. However, history has shown that when a team identifies a unique talent, positional depth can quickly become secondary. If a player has the ability to control the line of scrimmage, it can elevate everyone around him. There is also a connection that cannot be ignored, with ties to coaching influences and familiarity that often play a role in draft decisions. When a staff knows exactly what a player brings to the table, it reduces uncertainty and can make the decision much easier when the moment arrives. That level of confidence can be the difference between taking a chance and making a calculated move that pays off over time. The broader strategy seems to revolve around building a roster that is not only competitive right away, but also sustainable for the future. That means identifying players who can contribute early while still having room to grow into larger roles. It is not just about filling gaps. It is about creating a foundation that can support long-term success. Offensively, there is still a clear emphasis on surrounding the quarterback with the right pieces, whether that comes through the draft or other moves. The goal is to create an environment where development can happen naturally and efficiently. The right combination of weapons can accelerate that process, turning potential into production much faster. At the same time, the defensive identity of the team cannot be overlooked. Building a unit that can control games, apply pressure, and limit big plays remains a central focus. That balance between offense and defense is what ultimately defines teams that can consistently compete at the highest level. Every move, every visit, and every evaluation at this stage is part of a much larger puzzle. The Patriots are not just looking at individual players. They are analyzing how each piece fits into the bigger picture. It is a process that requires patience, precision, and a clear vision of where the team is heading. And as the countdown to the draft continues, the anticipation only grows stronger, with each new development adding another layer of intrigue to what is already shaping up to be a defining offseason for New England. At the same time, there is a growing sense that flexibility will be the defining trait of this front office heading into draft night. Instead of locking into a single plan, the Patriots appear prepared to react to how the board unfolds, which is often where the best opportunities emerge. When teams ahead make unexpected choices, it can push valuable talent down the order, and being ready to capitalize on that is something that can completely reshape a draft class in a matter of minutes. Another factor that continues to influence decisions is how the roster has been structured in recent seasons. There is a clear effort to become more dynamic, more explosive, and more adaptable to different game situations. That means prioritizing players who bring versatility, whether it is a defender who can line up in multiple spots or an offensive weapon who can create mismatches. The modern game demands that kind of flexibility, and teams that embrace it tend to stay ahead of the curve. There is also the internal development aspect that cannot be ignored. Young players already on the roster are expected to take significant steps forward, and that progression can impact how aggressively the team approaches certain positions in the draft. If the coaching staff believes in the growth of its current group, it opens the door to focus on other areas and build a more complete team rather than simply reacting to immediate needs. All of this creates a scenario where every decision is interconnected, from potential trades to draft selections and even future planning. The Patriots are navigating a complex landscape filled with possibilities, and the direction they choose will reflect not only their evaluation of talent, but also their confidence in the structure they are building behind the scenes as the pressure continues to rise and the margin for error becomes smaller with each passing move. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to Patriots Hub and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our New England Patriots. And don't be shy, share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. A storm is quietly brewing behind the scenes, and league insiders are beginning to whisper about what could become one of the most aggressive moves of the upcoming draft cycle. The New England Patriots, a franchise historically known for calculated decisions rather than reckless gambles, are now being linked to a bold and potentially franchise-altering strategy, packaging their pick 31 in a deal to climb into the top 10. While no official confirmation has surfaced, multiple sources close to front offices around the league suggest that New England's war room has been unusually active. Calls have reportedly been made, scenarios mapped out, and contingency plans explored with a level of urgency that hints at a clear objective. The question echoing across scouting departments is simple: who are they targeting? Speculation varies. Some believe the Patriots have identified a cornerstone offensive weapon capable of redefining their identity. Others insist the focus is on a defensive game-changer, a player who could anchor the team for years and restore a sense of dominance. What remains consistent, however, is the growing belief that standing still at pick 31 is no longer part of the plan. Trading into the top 10 is no small feat. The cost would almost certainly include additional high-value assets, future picks, possibly even established talent. Such a move would signal not just intent, but urgency. It would suggest that the Patriots see a narrow window to secure a player they deem essential, rather than settling for whoever falls to them late in the first round. Around the league, rival executives are watching closely. Some view the rumors as leverage tactics, a classic smokescreen designed to manipulate the board. Others are convinced there is genuine fire behind the smoke, pointing to the organization's recent patterns and shifting philosophy. If the whispers prove true, this could mark a defining moment for New England's next chapter. A leap from pick 31 into the top 10 would not just reshape their draft. It would send a message across the NFL that the Patriots are no longer waiting for opportunity. They are ready to seize it. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our New England Patriots, be sure to subscribe to Patriots Hub and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.